I wasn't even supposed to be watching the trivia stream. It was one of those corny virtual team-building events that companies force on everyone to make remote work fun. They'd sent out a calendar invite with fake enthusiasm, snacks optional but encouraged, and promised prizes for top scores. I wasn't planning to participate, but I had the live stream running in the background while folding laundry and half listening. First, it was just noise. A few familiar faces on screen, everyone trying too hard to be witty. People were showing off old baby photos for some Guess Who game, and Nick, the guy from HR, was screen sharing a slideshow to go along with it. Everything was going as expected. Awkward baby pictures, polite laughter, someone mispronouncing another person's name. Then it happened. Nick must have clicked the wrong folder. For barely a second, a different image appeared on screen. I wouldn't have even noticed, but something about the composition made my eyes snap to it. It wasn't a baby photo. It wasn't work-related. And it wasn't just some stock travel pic. It was Layla, my wife, in a hotel room, dressed in a tight, black dress I'd never seen before, laughing, flushed cheeks, glassy eyes, mid-laugh, mid-moment, unaware of the camera. She looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She wasn't alone either. Riley, a coworker of hers, had his arms around her, his face half buried in her neck, his hand resting a little too low on her hip. The way they were positioned, the closeness, it wasn't innocent. It wasn't vague. The background was unmistakable. Hotel curtains, ivory with a Berg * NDY border. A wine bottle and 2 mugs sat on the nightstand beside the bed. The bed was made up too neatly, like a room that had been tidied quickly, not long after being used. Then, in the far corner of the image, a mirror. That's what sealed it. The mirror caught their reflection from behind. Her bare shoulders, his dress shirt unbuttoned, his hand. It was undeniable. And there, at the bottom of the screen, the file name appeared in gray font, Weekend_Reno, JPG. I sat there frozen. My stomach dropped so hard I felt like I might throw up. For a second, I genuinely thought it was some sort of prank or hallucination. Like maybe my brain, already tired from the week, had glitched out. But no, that was Layla's laugh. That was her earring, the little gold hoops I bought her for our anniversary last year. That was her pose, head tilted back, hand brushing her collarbone. I'd seen it 1,000 times. And that was Riley, from work. The same Riley who once came to our apartment for game night. The same guy she mentioned in passing a few months ago when I asked about her late hours. My hands moved before my brain did. I hit pause, took a *T, saved it to a folder I never thought I'd need. Then I replayed the stream, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't. It was real. I didn't say a word. I didn't breathe. I sat there with my hands shaking, wondering how in the hell a moment like that could show up in the middle of a stupid HR slideshow. I watched as Nick quickly flipped to the next baby photo, his face going red. I doubt half the company even noticed. But I did. Caught it. And I couldn't unsee it. The rest of the stream played on in a blur. I kept watching, partly in shock and partly out of paranoia. What if they showed something else? Another photo? A video? But nothing more slipped through. Nick didn't even acknowledge the error. Just powered through like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, my life had just split into before and after. I didn't even hear Layla come home. She walked through the front door around 6:15, humming to herself and tossing her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. She always does that, same rhythm, same metallic clink. Her perfume floated in behind her, the one I used to love but now felt nauseating. She looked relaxed, carefree, like her whole day had been unremarkable. "Hey babe," she said, leaning down to kiss the top of my head. "You watching that trivia thing?" I didn't respond right away, just minimized the stream, pulled up the *T I had saved, and turned the laptop toward her. Her eyes flicked to the screen. A beat passed. Then she laughed. "Oh," she said casually. "That's from a photo shoot we did forever ago, like early pandemic days. Some marketing thing for work. I think we were supposed to look like a couple on a wine-tasting weekend or something. That's Riley with me. Isn't that hilarious? She said it like it was nothing, like it was funny, a joke, a prop, just some old work project resurfacing in an embarrassing way. But she never broke eye contact. And that's what told me everything I needed to know. I didn't say a word. I watched her, trying to read between the lines of her expression. She walked around the kitchen, kicked off her heels, and poured herself a glass of water. Not a hint of guilt. Not a crack in the armor. Like she'd been rehearsing this moment. Like she expected me to see it one day. When I asked her when the photo was taken, she shrugged. I don't remember exactly. I think March, maybe April. We both knew she was lying, because in the corner of the photo, sitting beside her on the nightstand, was the book she'd been reading last month. I had seen it on her nightstand at home the week she claimed she was in Phoenix for a leadership summit. You don't remember? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. It's been a long year, she said with a smile. Honestly, I barely remember last week. Then she changed the subject. Asked what we should do for dinner. Suggested we order sushi. She acted like nothing in her world had shifted. But mine had. Later that night, after she went to bed, I sat at the table in the dark, staring at my laptop. The Screench *T was still open. I zoomed in. I knew those curtains. We'd stayed in a place with the same ones on our honeymoon. Different city, but the same hotel chain. I found the hotel online. Reno. She had never mentioned Reno. Not once. I checked our shared credit card activity. Nothing came up, which meant she either paid in cash or used a card I didn't know about. The trail was cleaner than I expected, but not clean enough, because I knew. And now everything else. The late nights, the new dresses, the secretive smiles when she texted, started to click. Like puzzle pieces I'd been trying to force into the wrong picture. She thought I'd believe her. Maybe even wanted me to. Maybe she counted on me loving her enough to accept the lie and move on. But I wasn't moving on. Not yet. I had proof. And I needed more. Because whatever was hiding behind that laughter, behind the glass of wine, the smile, the hotel mirror, I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. After Layla went to bed that night, I stayed up staring at the ceiling for what felt like hours. The photo kept flashing in my mind, her smile, that wine bottle, the way she leaned into Riley like he was the one who made her feel at ease. And that laugh. God, that laugh. It used to be mine. At least I thought it was. I didn't say anything the next morning. I didn't confront her again or ask follow-up questions. She acted like everything was normal. Made coffee, asked about my plans for the day, kissed me on the cheek like the night before hadn't happened. It was terrifying how convincing she was. How calm. But my mind wasn't calm. It was waking up. I started retracing everything. Every little thing she'd done over the last few months that I'd brushed off with convenient logic. The small gut-check moments I'd convinced myself were just me overthinking. She changed her phone passwords back in February. All of them. Phone, laptop, even her iPad, the one we used to share for watching movies in bed. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, "You know, just being safe. Data leaks are everywhere lately." And I bought it. She stopped asking me for rides to work around the same time. Said her company had partnered with a local shuttle service. One of the new perks, she'd called it. They want to make commuting easier. At first I was happy. Thought it meant she'd be less stressed. But the odd thing was, I never saw the shuttle. Never heard it pull up. Never got a schedule. Once, when I offered to drive her anyway, she got weirdly defensive. "No, babe, it's fine. Don't worry. It's already covered." I dropped it, because that's what you do when you trust someone. You give them the benefit of the doubt. She started dressing differently too. It wasn't a sudden change. More like a slow shift. First it was new heels. Then a sleek blazer, then dresses with cuts I hadn't seen in her wardrobe before. She began wearing perfume more often, new earrings, even started doing her nails again after nearly a year of not bothering. When I commented on the change, half teasing, half curious, she brushed it off. "I just want to feel confident again," she said. I nodded, told her she looked beautiful. But the way she said it stuck with me. like she was reminding herself, not telling me. Around April, she started traveling more. Mostly weekend trips. At first, it was just one or two. A Friday flight, back late Sunday. She always had a tidy explanation. Training seminars, executive workshops, development intensives. The kind of corporate stuff that sounds legit if you don't ask too many questions. I remember suggesting once that I tag along and make a weekend of it. We haven't had a trip together in so long, I said, half joking. Might as well turn your work thing into a getaway. She smiled politely. That's sweet. But this one's just for me. It's more personal development than business. You know? Introspective stuff. I wouldn't want to bore you. Personal development. She said that like I should be proud. Like it was growth. I nodded and let it go. But now, with that hotel photo in my files, those weekends felt different. They didn't feel like seminars anymore. They felt like cover stories. Fabricated trips wrapped in corporate speak to justify her absence. The night after the trivia stream, I sat at the kitchen table long after Layla had gone to bed. I pulled out a notepad and started writing down every training weekend she'd mentioned. Dates, locations. I checked our shared calendar, her text messages, at least what little she hadn't deleted, even bank statements. Most of the charges were vague. Hotels under group bookings, meals listed as corporate catering or event room service. She'd been careful, almost impressively so. But one thing stood out. 2 months ago, on a weekend she claimed she was in Scottsdale for branding strategy. She'd left behind a boarding pass tucked in the inside pocket of her laptop bag. I'd found it while plugging in her charger. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I remembered. It wasn't to Phoenix. It was Reno. I pulled it up again, now with clearer eyes. The name, the date, the airline. It matched the file name from the photo, weekend_Reno. JPG. That wasn't a coincidence. That was her slipping. And then there was Riley. He started as a name in passing. Just another coworker. Riley said that presentation was trash. Riley brought donuts today, he's a saint. Riley's playlist saved my life this morning. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. We all have our work friends. The ones who get us through 9 to 5 misery. But then she stopped mentioning him. Completely. It was abrupt. Like a switch flipped. No more Riley stories. No more casual mentions. If his name ever came up, rarely it was flat, mechanical, like she was being cautious. I should have known that silence wasn't harmless. I remember one night, back in May, when I walked into the living room while she was texting. Her face lit up when the message came through. But when she saw me, she locked her phone immediately. I didn't ask. I didn't want to seem jealous. But something about the way she held the phone against her chest. It was too familiar, too protected. A week later, we were scrolling through vacation photos on her phone together. I noticed a text thread with Riley in the suggested contacts bar. When I tapped it by accident, she flinched. "Oh, that's just work stuff," she said, smiling. "I should probably clear that out." And right in front of me, she deleted the entire thread. Just like that. She did it so casually I almost didn't notice. But now I realize what that really was. Not a cleanup. Purge. She was scrubbing the evidence before I even thought to look. There was another thing. A subtle shift I hadn't fully understood until now. Her distance. Emotional distance, sure. But also physical. She stopped initiating things between us. Stopped reaching for my hand while we watched movies. Stopped lingering when we hugged. Even when she said, "I love you," it was softer. More like a habit than a truth. I thought maybe it was stress. Work was demanding. Life was heavy. Everyone was tired. But now I know. That distance wasn't random. It was displacement. Her affection had somewhere else to go. I don't know why I'm writing all this down. Maybe to organize it. Maybe to confirm I'm not crazy. But as I look at these notes, it's obvious, painfully obvious, that this wasn't just one bad decision. It was a pattern. A long, well-managed lie built out of moments I didn't question. Because I trusted her. Because I believed in us. She was never sloppy. She didn't leave lipstick on a collar or come home smelling like cologne. There were no cliché signs. Her betrayal was precise, almost surgical. She made sure I had just enough comfort to keep asking the wrong questions, or none at all. But now the curtain's been pulled back, and I can see it all clearly. This isn't paranoia. This is confirmation. It wasn't one mistake. It was many, layered and reinforced. And I played my part, smiling through it, believing in her words while ignoring the absence of real connection. I don't know what comes next, but I know I'm not going back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up before Layla. I stared at the ceiling for a long time before I let myself move, because I knew once I got up, there'd be no pretending anymore, not even to myself. The last thread of denial had snapped, and in its place was a new question forming, cold and insistent. How far did this go? I walked out of the bedroom like I was stepping onto a crime scene. Every surface suddenly suspect. The way she always placed her keys on the kitchen counter. The new espresso machine she insisted on buying even though we already had one. The travel brochures for places we never went. I noticed things now, the details I used to filter out. It was early, and she was still asleep. I booted up the smart TV in the living room, not to watch anything but to check something I'd nearly forgotten. The auto-sync feature tied to our cloud storage. It had been a running joke between us for years, how the TV sometimes saved *TS and clips of stuff we cast by accident. It was mostly memes and bad Netflix subtitles. But every now and then it caught more than it should. I opened the system gallery. My heart started pounding. There it was. The same image from the trivia stream, but this time not just as a *T. The TV had recorded a short clip, a few seconds right before the slideshow switched. I didn't even remember it doing that. I clicked on it. There was no music, just background chatter. But I heard her. Layla's laugh. Warm and breathless. Not polite, not filtered. The kind of laugh that starts in the chest and doesn't need permission. "Stop, you're terrible," she said, her voice rising over a soft clink of glass. Riley's voice followed, casual and low. "You're the one who said we needed to document the romance for the fake campaign." Then silence, then another clink, 2 wine glasses this time. Not coffee mugs, not water bottles. Glass. I froze the frame. There it was again. The mirror in the background. Her legs draped over his lap. A half-finished bottle of red on the table. And Riley leaning in, his forehead resting gently against hers like it was the most natural thing in the world. There was no camera crew. No brand logo. No lights or backdrop. Just 2 people, alone, comfortable, *mate. I didn't know how long I sat there staring at the screen. Probably too long. My coffee had gone cold. I hadn't even noticed. When I finally turned it off, my reflection flashed across the screen for a second. I didn't recognize the guy staring back. I walked quietly back to the bedroom. Layla had rolled onto her side, facing the wall. Peaceful, oblivious. She looked so normal. So her. For a moment I hesitated. Then I picked up my phone and opened our shared photo backup. We had an old Google account that was still connected to both our devices, mostly used for vacation photos and group albums. I hadn't checked it in years. I typed Reno into the search bar, and just like that, it popped up. 5 photos. 1 of the hotel room, 2 of Layla posing near the window in that same black dress, 1 of Riley pouring wine, and the last, taken in the mirror, both of them smiling, unaware of the camera snapping the *T from behind. The metadata didn't lie. April 14th. She had told me she was in Phoenix that weekend. My hands were trembling by now. I don't even know what emotion I was feeling. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the realization that someone you've shared your life with, trusted with every version of yourself, has built a parallel life behind your back. One where you don't exist. And it had been right in front of me the whole time. That was the part that hurt the most. I could have confronted her. Could have marched into the bedroom, thrown open the curtains, and shoved the evidence in her face. Could have screamed. Could have cried. Could have demanded why. But I didn't. Because suddenly, the idea of hearing her lie to me again, of watching her twist herself into a new excuse, felt more exhausting than just walking away. So instead, I made a decision. I opened the closet and pulled out 2 suitcases. I packed methodically, essentials only. A few changes of clothes, my laptop, chargers, my passport, the hard drive with my personal files. I didn't touch her side of the closet. I didn't even look at it. I gathered my documents, birth certificate, old tax files, bank information. The kinds of things you don't realize you need until you're already gone. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't break anything. I moved like someone evacuating a burning building, but doing it quietly because they didn't want to wake the person who started the fire. 40 minutes. That's all it took to dismantle our life. When I was done, I stood at the edge of our bed for a few seconds. She was still asleep, curled up with her back to me. I left a single envelope on her pillow. Inside was a printout of the trivia stream image. Not a copy. The original. I didn't leave a note, because what was there to say? By noon I was gone. Not just from the apartment. From everything. Email. Shared bank accounts. I even disabled my phone location sharing. It took a single call to my attorney to begin the process of filing for divorce. No fight. No accusations. No heated negotiations. I asked for nothing but one thing, to retain my rights to the tech brand I had co-founded years ago, before Layla and I even got married. It had been sitting dormant for years, just paperwork and a web domain I kept renewing out of habit. She never cared about it. Thought it was a nerdy side project. She could keep the apartment, the furniture, even the dog, hers more than mine anyway. But that company name, that legacy, that I was taking with me. By day 3, my name was no longer attached to our joint accounts. By day 5, her attorney had responded, clearly caught off guard. No one fights this quietly, I guess. But I didn't need noise. I needed distance. I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle under my full legal name, Jacob Benjamin Clark, and didn't tell a soul. When I arrived, I signed a lease on a small loft in an old brick building that smelled like coffee grounds and rain. The first night, I slept on an air mattress with no sheets, no TV, just the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of car tires on wet pavement. It felt more like home than the place I just left. Over the next few weeks, I focused on building a firewall between me and my old life. I changed my name on every public-facing profile to an alias I'd been holding on to since college, Cody Marlowe. A name no one but I had ever used. A name without history, without betrayal. Felt strange at first, like trying on a stranger's coat. But the longer I wore it, the more it fit. I applied for a silent partnership in a small data archiving startup. Paid in cash. No LinkedIn. No hedge *TS. I was a ghost in the system just the way I wanted it. They didn't care about my past, only my SK*LLS. I worked in back rooms, built out infrastructure, optimized storage efficiency. No meetings. No corporate trivia. No slideshow mistakes. Just silence. And in that silence, I found a kind of peace. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was something solid I could stand on. Still, some nights, I'd catch myself staring at the ceiling in that new place, wondering what she told people. If she cried. If she lied again. If she said I just disappeared. As if she hadn't driven me away with that single photo and all the lies behind it. But then I'd remind myself, I didn't disappear. I finally saw. And once you see the truth, there's no going back to pretending. The silence was the easiest part. After the storm, after the unraveling. After I stood in the center of what had been my life and saw the ash settling around me. There was something merciful about the quiet that followed. No fights. No apologies. No last-ditch let's talk. Just stillness. And I needed it more than I realized. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my brother. Not my coworkers. Not even the friend I'd known since middle school who used to crash on our couch after breakups. The less I said, the less I owed. That was the rule now. That was the version of myself I'd become. The flight to Seattle was forgettable. Clouds, earbuds, no eye contact. The airport buzzed around me like I didn't exist. I liked that. It was the closest thing to comfort I'd felt in weeks. I signed the lease on a studio I found online. Top floor of a repurposed warehouse turned microloft building in Soto. Exposed brick, oversized windows, bad insulation. The kind of place you rent when you're trying to be someone else. It smelled faintly of sawdust and new paint and rain that never quite dried. I unpacked what little I'd brought. 2 bags, a few folded shirts, my old ThinkPad, a worn copy of Neuromancer, and the portable hard drive with all my files. The bed was an inflatable one I bought at a 24-hour Walmart. No frame, no comforter, just a patch kit in case it deflated. For dinner that first night, I ate almonds and an apple I'd grabbed from the airport. I didn't care. The hunger in my stomach was less pressing than the hollow ache everywhere else. But there was freedom in it, too, because for the first time in years, there was no waiting. No wondering when she'd be home, or who she was texting, or what new lie I'd have to pretend not to notice. It was just me and the quiet, and it felt like starting over. By the end of the first week, I'd met with a small cybersecurity firm that operated like a startup but didn't dress like one. No ping-pong tables, no beanbags, just rows of server racks and people who preferred problem-solving to small talk. Perfect. They needed someone to overhaul their cold storage systems, redundant file structures, encrypted redundancy mapping, dead node failover protocols. Boring to most. Addictive to me. I offered to consult under an alias Cody Marlowe, the name I'd resurrected from my college code repositories. They didn't ask questions. Just looked at my test models and said, "When can you start?" I started the next day. My hours were mostly after sunset. I liked it that way. I'd take the freight elevator down into the server room with my thermos of instant coffee and spend entire nights rewriting the system from scratch. I brought in a rolling chair and a second monitor. No desk, no nameplate, just lines of code and the low hum of machines that didn't care about my past. I didn't speak much, didn't attend meetings, didn't add anyone on LinkedIn. I was the guy whose name appeared on internal forms but never on press releases. When vendors asked who built the back-end framework, the reply was always, an internal advisor. By month 3, the company had scaled faster than expected. My data architecture had reduced storage costs by 22%, and I watched from the shadows as the CEO got quoted in Wired. My name wasn't in the article. Neither was Cody's. That was fine. I wasn't here to be seen. I was here to vanish. Meanwhile, Layla's attorney finally responded to the divorce filing. Formal acknowledgement, no rebuttal. Her silence said more than any letter could have. I got word that she was staying in the apartment, probably telling people I'd left to find myself, or some other sanitized fiction that made her look like the victim. I didn't correct it. Why would I? The truth didn't need defense. It just needed distance. As part of the settlement, I gave up everything she might fight for. The apartment? Hers. The car lease? Transferred. The joint savings? Split evenly, no questions. I even relinquished the stupid standing mixer she never used but kept on the counter to look domestic. But I kept one thing. The company. Technically, it had never been active. Just an LLC on paper. A brand I registered years ago, when I still thought entrepreneur was a personality trait. Layla always teased me about it. Your imaginary empire, she used to call it. Clark Corps. Sounds like a bad spy movie. Well, Clark Corps didn't exist anymore, because I rebranded it. I filed paperwork under the Marlowe alias, changed the name, changed the logo, even rebuilt the website from the ground up. Quietly, without announcement. Just one more ghost in the machine. A month later, I discovered something interesting. Layla had once tried to list herself as a non-operating partner in Clark Corps, back when we were married. I never noticed, buried in some old tax doc. Nothing enforceable, nothing binding, but still, she'd planted her flag there, just in case I ever made something of it. Well, she found out soon enough. One morning, my lawyer forwarded an email her side had sent, inquiring about her status in the restructured brand. I replied through counsel with a single line. There is no record of her involvement in the new corporate structure. A day later, I removed the old domain entirely. Her name was now gone from every traceable record. And that's when it hit me, not just that I had left, but that she no longer had the ability to follow. She couldn't reach me, couldn't guilt me, couldn't rewrite the story. She could only sit with the silence I left behind. And I realized something else. I didn't miss her. Not the real her. Not the version I had unknowingly been with. What I missed, if I missed anything, was the illusion. The idea of her. The hope that she'd been who she claimed to be. But that version never existed. What existed was a woman who'd curated a double life with the precision of a surgeon. Who laughed into another man's neck and then came home and asked if I'd remembered to buy eggs. Who watched me hold doors open and charge her phone and bring her tea when she was sick. All while knowing she was already gone. And I had stayed. Blind. Willing. But not anymore. That part of me, the part that wanted to believe, died with that photo. Now I was someone else. Someone who no longer answered to Jake. Someone who had nothing left to prove. Seattle gave me cover. The rain helped. So did the anonymity. I found a rhythm: work, read, run, sleep. I deleted all my old social media accounts. No birthday reminders. No memories from this day 3 years ago. I wasn't that man anymore. I still had the hard drive with all the evidence, *TS audio, the backup folders. I hadn't looked at them since I left. But I didn't delete them either. I didn't need to. Their power was spent. Sometimes I dream of her. Not the betrayal, just the way she used to look at me in the early days. The Layla I used to imagine still existed. She'd wake up beside me, smile sleepily, and say something dumb like, "Your hair looks like a confused squirrel." But even in the dream I'd remember, and I'd wake up to silence. And the silence would feel better. Eventually I stopped counting the days. I didn't mark time like a prisoner anymore. I just existed, quietly, efficiently, fully outside the shadow of who I used to be. And in that space, in that deliberate absence of drama or noise, I found something I didn't think I'd ever get again. I found peace. Not closure. Not healing. Just peace. And that was enough. It didn't happen all at once, the rebuilding. It wasn't like I walked off the plane and transformed into a new man. No sudden catharsis. No dramatic haircut or midnight epiphanies. Just quiet, sustained action. Daily. Measured. Methodical. I started with the basics. A new routine, one that was mine and mine alone. Wake at 6:30. Coffee from the bodega on the corner. A walk to clear my head. Then work. Long, uninterrupted hours in the server room of the startup I'd quietly joined under the name Cody Marlowe. No one there asked questions. I was a ghost with a clipboard and a mind for redundancy architecture. I'd sit under dim lighting with a cup of burnt coffee and design data environments with a level of precision I had never afforded my personal life. In code, things made sense. If a system broke, you found the bug. If something failed, it left a trace. You could undo a mistake with a few keystrokes. Life didn't offer that grace, but computers did. The firm wasn't flashy. In fact, it was a bit of a mess, mid-pivot, mid-funding round, mid-everything. But I liked that. It felt like a reflection of me. Not broken, but reconfiguring. The CEO, a wiry guy named Alan, gave me wide berth. He didn't know my story, just knew I solved problems no one else wanted to touch. The servers became my sanctuary. Cold, loud, predictable. The hum of electricity was better than therapy. No one looked over my shoulder. No one expected me at happy hours or startup retreats. I had no badge, no #T on the company website. But my fingerprints were on everything. Every system upgrade, every fail-safe, every backup solution that kept their fragile infrastructure from collapsing. And slowly they started to notice. Alan would poke his head in occasionally and say things like, "Whatever you did with that compression protocol, we just shaved 12 grand off our AWS bill." I'd nod, go back to work. By the end of the first year, the company's entire backend was rebuilt from the ground up, quietly, cleanly, invisibly. Cody Marlowe's name never showed up in external reports, but internally, they started calling me the backbone. I didn't correct them. I didn't encourage it either. I didn't need to be known. I just needed to matter. The firm shifted directions shortly after, leaning hard into federal contracts.